Kemi stood at the rusted gate of the old meat market, gripping the straps of his backpack, like they might keep him from blowing away. The chain-link fence rattled in the breeze, even though the air felt too heavy to move, thick with the scent of decay and something acrid beneath it. He could almost taste the rust on his lips, a metallic tang that matched his unease. "Bet you chicken out first," Lex said, his voice ringing out like a challenge. Tossing a flashlight from hand to hand, he was taller than the rest, the kind of kid who acted like a leader, just because his voice had dropped first. His confidence almost palpable. Kenny shrugged, feeling the heat rise in his cheeks. I didn't say I wouldn't go in." The truth was, he was terrified of what lay beyond the gate. The faded sign above the building read Lockland Meats, the letters chipped and warped from heat and time. The windows were dark, thick with grime, blacked out by the rot inside. Ivy curled up the brick walls like veins, as if the building itself had died and nature was trying to drag it back into the earth. "Can we just go in already?" Lex urged, his impatience palpable. 10 minutes in, grab some shit and we bounce." "Wait," Maya said, caution in her voice. "I thought we were just gonna check it out, not loot the place." Lex rolled his eyes, dismissing her concerns. "It's abandoned. No one's gonna miss a rusty hook or whatever. Besides, Mr. Tatum gives extra credit for creative history presentations. I'm bringing in a real piece of Lockland history." Jay snorted. "I'm gonna bring in a cow femur and tell the class it's my grandma." "Not funny," Kenny mumbled, feeling the weight of their laughter. Jace looked at him, grinning. "What, too dark for the spooky boy?" "I'm not spooky," Kenny insisted, but he felt the tremor in his voice. I heard stuff." "Oh boy, here we go," Lex said, pacing toward the gap in the fence. "Tell the story, Kenny. Let's get it over with." Kenny hesitated, his heart racing, then spoke quickly, like ripping off a Band-Aid. "My cousin, Tyler, said his friend came here on a dare and never came back. Said there was something in the freezer room. A man, but not really. He wore this mask made of dried skin, stitched up tight, and all he did was cut meat. Just over and over, like he forgot how to do anything else." Maya's face twisted in disgust. "Gross." "Tyler started to call him Scad," Kenny added, his voice dropping lower. "Not because of a name tag or anything, because his face was all—" He gestured vaguely at his own cheek. "Cracked and dried, like jerky, or maybe it was a mask, I don't know." Lex gave a mock shiver. "Wow, terrifying. You sure your cousin wasn't just describing your lunch?" Jace chuckled, but Maya didn't laugh. She stared at the building, her fingers twitching anxiously. "Something about this place feels wrong, like it's watching." The wind hissed through the gap in the fence, and for a moment a thick silence enveloped them. Lex clicked on his flashlight. Only one way to find out. They slipped through the hole one by one, Kenny hesitating at the threshold, holding his breath as he followed them inside. The smell hit them all, thick, sweet rot, mingling with something sharp beneath, like rusted iron. "Ugh," Maya gagged, her face contorting in disgust. "That's not just old. Probably rats," Jace shrugged, brushing it off. They reached the side entrance, a door kicked in years ago, its frame splintered. Lex pushed it open, the hinges groaning in protest. Blackness stared back at them, swallowing sound and light. Kenny's breath fogged in the air, despite the warm evening outside. Fear knotting in his stomach. No one spoke. Not until Lex stepped inside, shining his light around. Broken tiles crunched beneath their feet. Empty racks loomed like skeletons in the gloom, meat hooks swinging ever so slightly, as if someone had just walked through. Kenny's voice was barely a whisper. "We shouldn't be here." The beam from Lex's flashlight cut through the darkness, catching glints of rusted metal and shattered glass. The room was long and gutted, old checkout counters now half collapsed, conveyor belts coated with dust and decay. The smell was worse inside, a putrid mix of wet fur and coppery pennies that made Kenny's stomach churn. "All right," Lex said, trying to sound casual despite the tension thickening the air. "Split up, find something weird. Meet back here in 10. "Split up?" Maya frowned, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Seriously? We'll cover more ground, Lex insisted, waving his flashlight dismissively. Kenny shifted from foot to foot, anxiety gnawing at him. Maybe we should stick together. What if someone gets lost? Or hurt? Then yell, Jace shrugged. We'll find you. Unless Scab finds you first. He made a grabbing motion and cackled, but his laughter was a hollow sound that echoed off the walls. No one's gonna get hurt, Lex reassured them, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. Still, Maya stayed close to Kenny as they crept deeper into the building. They passed rusted-out freezers with doors hanging open like yawning mouths. Shelves stained from whatever had once dripped down them. Okay, Lex said, shining his flashlight ahead. I'll take the back office. Jace, check behind the counter. Maya, go with Kenny and see if the locker rooms have anything cool. Kenny stiffened, panic rising in his throat. Wait, the locker rooms? Maya shot Lex a concerned look, but nodded gently. Come on, just a quick look. We'll stay close. Lex disappeared into the back hallway. Jace leapt the broken counter and vanished behind cracked display coolers. Maya and Kenny moved cautiously past the old butcher's station. Knives still hung on a magnetic strip, encased behind cracked plexiglass, warped from time. Bloodstains marred the tile, as if someone had painted with old wine. You okay? Maya asked, glancing at Kenny, who nodded too quickly, the fear churning in his gut. They turned a corner and came to the locker room door, half-hinged and rusted shut. Kenny hesitated, then pushed it open with a sharp metallic groan. Inside, rows of metal lockers stretched into the dark, some with doors ajar, others still tightly latched. The beams from their flashlights jittered across the room, illuminating dust motes that danced in the stale air. A sudden sound, clang, made both of them jump. Sorry, Kenny said, forcing a breath. My foot hit a can. Maya chuckled softly, but the laugh held a nervous edge. We should grab something quick and head back. They stepped deeper inside, and one locker caught Kenny's eye. It had a child sticker still clinging to it, half-peeled, a cartoon pig wearing a chef's hat. Underneath, something was scratched into the metal. Meat stays fresh when it's still alive. Maya frowned, brushing dust away. That wasn't a brand slogan, was it? Kenny didn't answer, his gaze fixed on the last row of lockers. One of them was moving, just a little, shivering like it was breathing. Kenny, Maya whispered, her voice quaking. Did you see? Clang! A locker door flew open. Nothing inside. The two bolted without another word, racing back through the market. Section 3. The hooks hunger first. Lex heard them first. Footsteps, heavy and wet, somewhere in the butcher's hall. He froze mid-step in the back office, ears straining as dread pooled in his stomach. Then came Maya's scream. He hurried to see what was wrong. Fear blossoming in his chest. Around the corner, past empty shelves and blood-slick tiles, he nearly ran straight into Maya, who was dragging Kenny by the arm. Panic etched across her face. He's here, she gasped, her words tumbling out in a rush. Who? Lex started to ask when, crash, something massive slammed into a metal shelf nearby, sending it toppling into the aisle. Jace came running, but he wasn't fast enough. Out of the dark, a figure emerged, towering and twisted, a butcher's apron hanging from his shoulders like a flayed curtain. His face was leathered, puckered, a grotesque mask of flesh stretched too tight, a nightmare made real, Scab. He didn't run, he lunged. His hook whistled through the air and caught Jace in the leg. The boy screamed and hit the floor, clutching his thigh as blood pooled beneath him. Jace! Lex and Maya turned, trying to get to him, but Kenny stood frozen, trembling, whispering something again and again. Lost in his own world. Scab loomed over Jace, brewling like a wild animal, snorting and twitching, but he didn't finish the job. He just watched. And then his head snapped toward Kenny. Kenny took a step forward, staring at the blood and gore like an old friend, his expression shifting into something almost serene. Don't! Lex shouted, desperation lacing his voice, but Kenny didn't listen. I get it now, Kenny said softly, his voice steady. I get it. Scab tilted his head, a predator, curious about his prey. Kenny smiled, small and nervous, like a child who finally understood a riddle. I'm meat, we all are. Scab moved, fast. In the chaos, Lex grabbed Maya and hauled her back toward the storage hall. No, she screamed, fighting against him. We can't leave them. We don't have a choice, Lex insisted, dragging her along. Behind them, Jace screamed again, cut off suddenly. Section 4. The till room. Lex and Maya burst through a swinging metal door and into cold. The processing room was worse than they imagined. Steel hooks dangled from the ceiling. Desiccated limbs stuck into them. The floor slick with thawed blood. Rib bones hung like grotesque decorations. Cleavers, bone saws, and meat tenderizers lined the blood-stained walls like surgical tools, each one telling a story of horror and pain. Lex slammed the door shut, wedging a dented prep cart against it. We need something sharp, something fast. Maya was panting, her shirt soaked with sweat and the blood of her friend. Lex collapsed beside her, holding his side where he had hit something sharp in his rush. A shallow gash ran from his ribs to his hip, burning with every breath. He's dead, Maya whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of reality. Lex didn't answer. He couldn't. He was screaming and then nothing. A thud echoed from the hallway. The door rattled. Lex gritted his teeth, rising to his feet and grabbing a deboning knife. We fight, we run, we die, whatever. But we don't sit here. Maya nodded, shaky but determined, adrenaline coursing through her. Then the door stopped rattling. Silence. And then a noise behind them. Tap, tap, tap. One of the hooks spun lazily, and something dripped from it. They turned. Kenny stood in the middle of the room, alone. His face was calm, pale. His eyes, not his. His hands were red to the wrists, the evidence of something dark and terrible. Where is he? Lex asked, his voice trembling. Kenny smiled faintly. He let me go. Said I was good meat. Said I knew what I was. Maya stepped forward, her voice shaking. Kenny, are you hurt? I feel fine. He turned his hands over, letting the sticky red liquid drip onto the floor. Warm. Then Scab stepped out from the shadows behind him. No footsteps, no sound. He'd been there the whole time, lurking, waiting. Maya backed away, her voice trembling. We can leave. We can still get out of here. Kenny didn't flinch. He leaned into Scab like a child might into a parent, his head touching the man's blood-spattered apron. Kenny stood near the center of the room, a twisted puppet in a macabre play. Lex's grip tightened on the knife he held. Kenny took a slow step toward them. He showed me. All we are is meat. Some cuts are worth more than others. Scab stepped forward. A hook swung gently in one hand, a cleaver in the other, eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. Please, Maya whispered. Kenny, you're not thinking straight. We're your friends. Kenny blinked, then frowned, confusion flashing across his face. Friends don't leave each other. Friends feed each other. Lex lunged. Too slow. Scab moved like a butcher knowing exactly where to cut. One swing. The cleaver tore into Lex's leg, dropping him with a cry. Maya screamed, terror flooding her senses. She turned to run, but Kenny was already behind her, his grip vice-like as he hugged her tightly, his breath warm against her ear. I'll make it quick, he whispered, a promise wrapped in sorrow. The flashlights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. In the dark, metal clanged. Meat was cut. Something wet hit the floor. Then silence.